In this lesson today we will see about the principles and steps in teaching and learning, and the objectives that the student will be able to understand in this lesson: the principle and characteristics of extension teaching, steps in extension teaching, principles of learning and principles of adult learning, and elements of learning situation. Now first of all we will see the principles of extension teaching. So in extension one need to follow these principles in order to teach the farmers or any other clients. So extension worker has to follow the following principles for successful teaching. Number one is principle of activities. So active in the use of teaching methods or approaches. The extension worker should be active. He should use as many extension methods as possible to bring about effective teaching. Number two is principle of linking with life. So link teaching with used life situations. Number three, principle of interest. So interest should be developed in teaching, because without interest specific objectives will not be achieved. Any teaching should have a definite aim or purpose. So teaching should be purposive and definite. Without any purpose, if teaching take place, the farmers will not learn. So every teaching process should have a definite aim. Number five is principle of selection. The teacher or the extension worker should be able to select appropriate teaching methods. So when teaching with farmers, more number of teaching methods should be used as per the capability and ability of the clients. So this is a very important principle. Next is the principle of vision. So vision into various teaching methods, individuals and groups. Number 7 is the principle of practice. In teaching, practice is emphasized. There is what is called teaching practice. So unless you make the farmers do something, he may not remember. When you make the farmers, or when you teach the farmers as how to do something in practice, he will remember with perfection and practice with perfection. Number 8 is principle of communication. So the extension worker should be able to communicate his teaching methods. It is not enough if you just use the teaching methods, but the extension worker should have the capability or capacity to communicate well with the clients. Number 9 is the principle of teaching steps. Step by step, he should undergo or teach anything step by step, one thing at a time. He cannot thrust many things at a time. Only one idea should be taught in a time or at a time. Too many ideas or too many themes will spoil the teaching environment. So these are the major principles one should keep in mind while teaching in extension work. Next we will see some of the basic characteristics of extension teaching. So there are a number of characteristics of teaching. The extension worker must understand these characteristics. This understanding can help in assisting the clients to gain an understanding of the ideas he is trying to sell them. These include: number 1 is extension teaching requires specific, clearly defined objectives. A teaching objective is simply the term used to describe the end product. So every teaching process should end with some desired purpose or some desired product. A teaching situation or teaching process without any specified aim or product will be a failure, will not be successful. All purposeful teaching should be seen as having some specific objectives. So before an extension worker plans a teaching situation, he also should see that every teaching plan should have a specific objective. Extension teaching needs the use of several methods for presentation for the maximum effectiveness. No one extension method can reach or influence all the people reached by it. So extension workers should use as many extension teaching methods as possible to achieve the objectives. Extension teaching requires that learners have effective learning experiences. A learning experience is a reaction. It may be either mental or physical reaction. A learner makes this reaction through seeing, learning or doing the things to be learnt. Through this reaction, he gains an understanding and meaning of the content taught by the extension worker. An effective learning situation includes a teacher. He joins the learning group. He provides good stimulation and guidance of learning activity. Number 2, learners. The learners are maybe farmers or other extension clienteles. They should be properly motivated. They have recognized the needs for learning also. Number 3 is the teaching aids. These aids should be properly used so that learning experience is identified. Next, extension teaching requires careful evaluation of results. So, every teaching process should be evaluated for the results, whether the objective has been achieved as expected. This should guide future efforts. Extension teacher should constantly evaluate the results in a precise and objective manner. He must plan the future effort based only on these findings. Next is extension teaching should link up new unknown materials with what is already known. The extension instructor has some responsibility for learning and understanding level of his learning and adequately preparing them for new understanding. As I told earlier, the farmers or the clients will have adequate knowledge and expertise and wisdom. So, this information should be made use by the extension worker. Extension teaching must accomplish certain kinds of educational changes in relation to the subject matter to be taught. Changes in knowledge such as varieties of seeds to plant, amount of fertilizer to use, changes in skills, that is ability such as mental skill, example, working out solution to problems. So, these learning methods should be, learning principles should be kept in mind by the extension workers. Next, we will see the steps to be followed in extension teaching. So, when you introduce a subject matter to this farmer, he will not readily learn. There are some steps that each learner will undergo before learning. So, let us see the steps that each learner will undergo before learning and action. So, extension teaching is a planned and purposeful act on the part of the extension worker. So, you cannot just go like that with some content teach the farmers. Before teaching, you should plan well as to what to be taught, whom to teach, where to teach, what change of behavior he should bring about, and what should be the end, what is the objective of teaching approach, and what should be the result. So, the extension worker has to move step by step in a scientific and logical way to impart training to the clients who may be farmers, farm women and rural youth. The role of the extension worker is that of the facilitator and motivator. So, the steps as given by Wilson and Gallup 1955, we will see the basic steps in extension teaching and it is given in figure 1. So, there are basically 6 steps involved in extension teaching. First one is attention, second interest, third desire, fourth conviction, fifth action and lastly satisfaction. So, first step is attention. So, in teaching process, the first most important step is creating awareness is the first step in extension teaching. People must be made aware of the new ideas and practices. They must first know that it is a new idea or practice or object exists. This is the starting point for change. Until the individual's attention has been focused on the desired change, there is no recognition of a problem to be solved or a want to be satisfied. So, this is the most important step that every extension worker should seek. So, here for seeking attention, mass contact methods like radio, television, etc. and personal contacts by the extension workers, contact through local leaders are important at this stage for creating or seeking their attention. The second step is the interest. Now the people know of the, so after seeking their attention, now the learners would have gained an idea about that this is a new idea. So the next step is to stimulate the interest. More information about the topic can be furnished. Suppose for example, if you are introducing a variety, the name of the variety may be the attention that you have brought among the farmers. So how to arouse the interest? So more information about the variety should be given, whether it is a long duration variety or short duration variety, what is the yield output, what is the salient features of this variety. So in the interest stage, the extension workers should give more additional information about the idea or practice. So this can be brought about by personal contact by the extension workers, contact through local leaders, farm publications, radio, television, etc. So these are the important media to stimulate interest at this stage. Third stage is desire. So it means unfreezing the existing behavior and motivating the people for change. At this stage, it is necessary to stress the advantages of the new idea or practice. So anyone may not be interested unless it is having some advantages over the new idea. So additional information should be given to arouse their desire. So the methods followed may be visit to demonstrations, farm publication. Through farm publications, you can give more information about this innovation, and personal contacts may be taken up by the extension workers. Group discussions may be taken among the farmers. So these are the important methods used to arouse the interest of the farmers. Fourth stage is the conviction. So it is a stage of strong persuasion. So at this stage, we have to convince the farmers. The people must be convinced about the applicability of the new practice in their own situation. They also must be convinced that the new practices would be highly useful for them. Now they must be furnished with adequate information about the new idea, how it works. So field days or field visits, slide shows, personal contact by extension workers and trainings are important at this stage. So at this stage, conviction stage, some farmers may have a unfavorable attitude towards that innovation, and while other farmers may not have any attitude towards that innovation. It is the job of the extension worker to make their attitude into favorable attitude at this conviction stage. And the next stage is the action. So this is the stage of the new practice wherein it should be put into operation, where the new practice has to be put into operation. So here the small scale demonstrations can be carried out, or supply of critical inputs may also be arranged in real life situations of the progressive farmers. This gives an opportunity of direct experience for the learners. At this stage, proof of change such as changes in yield, income, employment, etc. must be collected carefully. Demonstrations, personal contact with extension workers, supply of critical inputs and ensuring essential services are important at this stage, because at this stage farmers has to actually adopt the technology in their fields. So at this stage also it is possible that a farmer with favorable attitude may change his attitude into in unfavorable manner. So the extension workers should clearly see that the attitude of the farmers are always kept in a positive manner. The last step in the extension education process is the satisfaction. So to produce permanent change, the extension efforts must give satisfying results. Satisfaction usually occurs from better yield, higher income, better health, etc. Satisfaction reinforces learning. It also develops confidence. This confidence in turn generates motivation for more and more changes. To sustain the change in behavior, it is necessary to furnish new and relevant information about the practice on a continued basis till the change in the practice itself is felt necessary. So here, use of mass media, local leaders and personal contacts with extension workers are important at this stage. Availability of critical inputs and essential services are also to be ensured. So the steps in extension teaching ought to be matched with the innovation decision process of the learners. Next, we will see the principles of learning. In extension education, the main emphasis is on providing effective learning experience to the rural people. While doing so, the extension worker or the communicator should know the characteristics of learning. They are also called as principles of learning. So, now in this lesson I am talking about the principles of learning in the extension work. So, there are several principles one should remember. Number 1 is learning is growth like and continuous. The extension worker should understand the farmer's level clearly. He should try to develop their understanding. The relationship between the things the farmers know and the new unknown ideas should be clarified with the help of education. The subject should be presented in such a way that the farmer should understand it. The new ideas may be repeated intermittently to emphasize its importance. Number 2, learning should be meaningful. When a farmer sees the use of the things learned or taught in practical life, then only he can understand their value. If immediate opportunity to use the knowledge obtained through learning is available, then the knowledge is retained for a longer time. Therefore, the extension worker should place the objectives of learning very clearly and meaningfully before the farmers. He must take care to see that the subject does not go over the heads of the farmers. This is especially important in extension education, as the educational program needs to be situation oriented and within the physical and economic limits of the people. While administering the extension programs, what changes are expected in the clientele should be clearly known to the extension worker. The clear objectives serve as a guide in understanding the programs and also at the time of evaluation. Next learning principle is, in learning, maximum senses of the learner should be used. Senses are the gateways to mind. Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting and thinking are the senses. Individual learns anything through these senses. Mostly, messages are received by the people by seeing, hearing and doing new things. Some people learn by hearing, some others believe on what they see. For making the teaching effective, the learner's maximum senses should be used. The capacity of learning is mainly dependent on the use of the senses and creative thinking on the part of the learner. Presenting a constructive and desirable picture of the result before the eyes of the learner is an important aspect of effective teaching. So, as I told earlier, according to the capability and potentiality of the learners, we should go in for the teaching aids. Demonstrations, visual aids and other symbols help in making this picture of a new idea more vivid in order to make the learning experiences effective. Learning should be challenging and satisfying. The farmer should be encouraged for timely and proper progress. Care must be taken to see that the expected education level should be within the capacity of the farmers. The extension worker should place a challenging picture of new things before the farmer and convince him that he can have satisfaction by learning new things. While doing this, a friendly atmosphere should be maintained. Learning should develop functional understanding of learners. Extension worker provides knowledge in teaching, but that knowledge should be understood by the farmers and utilized by them in real life situations. Hence, acquiring knowledge is just the first step in learning, but it is not the same as understanding. Memorizing is one way of acquiring knowledge, but this acquired knowledge must be used in everyday life, otherwise it will be forgotten. If the farmer does not put the acquired knowledge into use, his learning is useless in reaching the desired objectives. The farmer should understand the whole subject as well as different topics and their interrelationships, otherwise he cannot develop the functional understanding. For example, if a farmer is interested in applying pesticides for his rice crop, then he must understand the dose, time and method of application as well as the interrelationship between these elements. Then only he can use the pesticides judicially. Learning why a particular thing is to be learned, its utility in life should be emphasized in the beginning. After understanding the need for the new information, it may be divided into parts. The function of each part, its relation with other parts, and finally the relationship of each part to the whole topic should be clearly understood. Then the farmer would decide the place of the new idea in his work and utilize the new information in his everyday life. The extension workers should divide the extension programs in meaningful parts and decide the methods to be used in making learning effective. The next principle is learning is affected by physical and social environment. The physical and social environment creates a favorable background for effective learning. The physical environment includes temperature, light, aeration, and sitting arrangements. The students should be required to spend minimum energy in adjusting with the environment. Social environment and the mental makeup of the students are closely associated. The teacher should create a suitable environment. Seventh learning principle is learning ability varies widely among individuals. So, they are heterogeneous, the learners are heterogeneous in nature. So, there is a need for a balance between the level of understanding of the farmers and the level of communication. Similarly, the subject should be within the farmer's ability to learn. These individual differences must be taken into account before arranging for extension program. Eighth principle is learning is a gradual process, usually requiring several exposures before change is noticed. So, we can't teach farmers instantly, it takes some time. In extension education, it is expected that the rural people should use improved practices in the fields, homes and villages. Their main emphasis is on doing things by the rural people for all-round development of the village. Education should result in action by the people. The new ideas have to be presented clearly through different media in order to make the learning fruitful. If the extension worker aims to introduce an innovation, then he should explain it to the local leaders and innovative farmers. This contact will be of use to him while conducting meetings and informing other people. Depending on the nature of the innovation, demonstrations and distribution of particular materials will have to be undertaken. If the extension workers can create a picture of what is to be learned, why it is to be learned and to what extent it is to be learned, then the people will voluntarily come ahead to learn new things. For convincing the necessity of innovation, it has to be presented at least 6 to 8 times through different media. Next, the extension worker should arrange the use of equipment so that all can see clearly. So, adults understand spoken words better than written words. Hence, the extension worker should speak clearly. He should choose words carefully. He should proceed step by step. He should repeat the ideas which he is trying to transfer. Encourage good ideas, reward progress, avoid ridicule and punishment. Learning is an active process on the part of the learner. The extension worker can just create the situation, but only the farmer has to learn by himself. For learning new skills, the farmer must practice the new skills. He must also relate the facts in order to understand them. He must change the present attitudes. Also, he must create new attitudes. Similarly, he has to develop appreciation for new things. All people do not learn at the same time and at the same rate. But if they are taught together, then the learning becomes easier for them. The farmer in such a situation not only learns from the extension worker, but also by discussion with his colleagues. Learning requires effective communication. In communication, new ideas are carried to the people. In this process, 2 or more individuals exchange their feelings, ideas, thoughts and opinions. They share their experiences. Mostly words are used in communication, but if suitable visuals and symbols are shown to the people, it can be more effective. Theory and practice should be related in learning. Theory explains the why and how of an idea. Practice teaches the learner how to do a particular thing. In some instance, a learner understands theory, but he cannot use it in practice. On the other hand, in some other instances, the learner knows how to do a particular thing, but does not know the theory behind it. Hence, a balance between the theory and practice is a must. It is necessary to know both theory and practice for acquiring high professional competency. That is why the farmer should be taught both. Let us see the principles of adult learning. Number 1, personal benefit. Adult learners see the personal benefit of what they are learning and how it satisfies a need they have. Number 2, experience. Adult learners always come to each learning event with a unique background of knowledge and experience. Hence, the experience should be taken into account by the extension workers. They have more experience than the extension workers, and their experience should not be ignored. Number 3, self-direction. Adult learners are self-directed. They will not like people to be dictated. They must have some, they think that they must have some control over what they are learning. Fourth principle of adult education is application and action. Adult learners are practical in their approach. They learn by doing. They will not listen to whatever the extension worker says. Number 5 is learning styles. Adult learners learn in different ways, from learning by doing to learning by using their eyes, ears, or logic to acquire new skills and knowledge. Next, we will see what is the meaning of learning situation. So far, we have been indicating about learning situation. Now, we will see the meaning of learning situation. A learning situation is a condition or an environment in which the elements necessary for promoting learning are present. So, it is already depicted in figure 2. We have 5 elements. Number 1 is the learner. Number 2 is the instructor. Number 3, the subject matter. Number 4, physical facilities, and number 5, teaching methods and aids. So, first coming to the instructor. As an instructor, the role of the extension and development worker is to manipulate the other 4 elements so that the learners have an effective learning experience. So, this is a figure wherein all the elements are predicted. So, the learner occupies a central element in the learning situation. The entire purpose is to make the learner to learn. Hence, learning becomes the objective, while the other 4 elements becomes the means for achieving this end. Learning by learner depends upon the need for information, interest, level of aspiration, nature and level of understanding, capability to attach desired meanings, and the ability to use the information. Coming to the instructor, the quality of the learning will depend upon the quality of the conditions created by the instructor. A successful extension and development worker or instructor is the one who takes into account the following important considerations, that is, selection of learning experiences. These learning experiences must suit the abilities and needs of the learners and the needs of the community. Next, skill in the use of the extension methods and aids. Number 3, understanding of learners, the needs and abilities. So, before teaching, we should know the capability and potentiality and the background of the learners. Number 4 is the ability to react appropriately to the feelings, emotions and attitude of the learners. Number 5, ability to encourage the learners' participation in the learning situation. So, always learning should be interactive while teaching farmers. Next, ability to arrange and manage the learning situation so as to prevent or minimize distractions within and outside the learning situation. And the learners should be good composure, sincerity, and you should be with good human relationship. You should set forth clear objectives and knowledge of the subject matter. He should possess good communication skills and you should have good democratic leadership. Next element is subject matter. The subject matter is the content of any teaching and learning process. The transfer of the subject matter will be easy and effective if it fulfills the following. The subject matter should be valid and correct based on empirical facts. It should be applicable in practical development situations. It should be organized according to the needs and interests and level of the understanding of the learners. It should be timely and appropriate, and the subject matter should be important and related to the specific teaching objectives. Next is the teaching materials. So, without the help of suitable teaching methods and aids, the subject matter cannot be effectively transferred to the learners. Proper selection and skillful handling of teaching aids facilitates the creation of a desirable learning situation. Therefore, the teaching methods and aids should be simple and easy to handle, suitable to the subject matter, readily available, in good working conditions, diversified, flexible and suited to the environment and needs of the learners. The last element is the physical facilities. Physical facilities include place, light, ventilation, aeration, seating arrangements, etc. Physical facilities must be satisfying both to the instructor and the learner. The instructor has to ensure the availability of the suitable physical facilities for creating good learning situation. So, in this lesson, we have seen about the important principles of extension teaching that has to be followed while teaching. and we have seen this some basic concept that needs to be considered in extension teaching. And also the teacher should keep in mind the principles of learning and the principles of adult learning while teaching, and the instructor should provide the essential elements required for creating learning situation.